Welcome to the Athletic Football Show. I'm Robert Mays. Joining me today is my good friend Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I have a sentimental shirt on, which if anyone sees the video would be like, why is a Macho Man Randy Savage purple shirt a sentimental shirt? But it is, because it does have some meaning to me. I want me to just dive right into it?
Go for it, bud.
Let's go. So this will be my last episode as an official member of the Athletic Football Show. It's a good thing. It is going to have some great opportunities ahead. It's a great thing, which will many of you will find out very soon. But this is my last episode. So this was the shirt I wore for our very first episode of the Athletic Football Show, which was the NFC North preview in 2020.
Yeah.
I think my cat Mage yelled the entire time. We had to re-record. We had to add on because Yannick Ngakoue got traded and to the Vikings, and then you like hit me up and you're like, hey, we got to re-record this part. I thought I messed up, and it turns out no, the trade happens afterwards. And I was like, that was my first introduction to the production side of all of this. So it's a lot of feelings going on, good and a little, very sentimental right now.
I've said this to you privately. I'll say it to you publicly. Congratulations. It's an opportunity that you so deserve, and I'm so proud of you. And watching you carve out a space for yourself in this industry and come from where you started to where you are now has been so gratifying and rewarding for me personally, not only as someone who works with you, but also as your friend. And I just feel so incredibly grateful for the chance to have done this with you. You know, to think back to us playing shuffleboard at Kilroy's at 3 a.m. at the Combine like 10 years ago. And when we were just a couple of idiots who had no idea what we were doing with our lives.
None.
To where we are now, this opportunity to build something with a friend is not lost on me. You know, like getting to start the show and watch it grow has been the most fulfilling thing I've ever gotten to do in my career. And it would not be possible without you. So to have a partner that you know is going to put in everything he has to every show, that's not a given in this business. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate everything you brought to this every single day. And I'm going to miss doing this with you, but I'm so proud of where you're going and what you built for yourself. And I know you're going to crush it, man.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to avoid any tears because I'm an ugly crier. So I'm trying. You don't want to break that well. Dude, it's that time you called me out of the blue and you're like, hey, got this thing going at the Athletic. And I've referred to this before, but I remember just being like, yeah. And just being, I was so honored that you thought I could keep up. You know, I will say I started as a fan of yours with you and Barnwell. And the fact that not only both of you become friends, you're invited to my wedding. Yeah. You know, from a tweet reply 10 years ago, it's turned into this. And it's, I don't know. People have different ways of going about it, like how they put it, but it's just so crazy how life aligns sometimes and just how one thing leads to another and everything happens for a reason. It's like, I never tweeted then. And the fact I was like, you know what? He's talking about my dad's pencil right now. Like, I'm going to reply. I like Robert Mays. He seems okay. And you were more than okay. You turned out to be a good friend. You've met my whole family. I've met your family. And like you said, doing this with you, it was the speed that we can do this at, speed meaning just the pace that we both were trying to achieve, and watching you and the new chapter in your life, becoming married, also and becoming sober. It's been amazing watching the energy you've channeled into your family and your relationships and now your work. And I'm glad, of course, that we got to do this as friends, but even if we weren't friends, it would have been amazing to get you in this part of your life as a coworker, because you had that drive and I had that drive too. It wasn't all hunky dory for me getting into media. Like, I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I was opening up a State Farm when Robert called me. I still opened up the State Farm. That first year on the pod, I did a couple of episodes from my State Farm office, and I was like, I had to tell people. And every day I'm just like, thank God he called me, because I imagine me selling insurance people. I'm the worst salesperson ever, because as soon as someone goes, yeah, I don't think that's right for me, I go, absolutely, you're absolutely right. That's not right for you. And some people say we agree too much, but I think that's why we're friends, is because we both have that sensibility, I think. So there's just so much that's happened over the years. The growth, the draft show is the best indicator of that. Going from, we joke about it, from that table to what it was, that monstrosity 5 days ago. It's all in. I mean, yeah, you drove me. Like it's easy to get complacent in any work, and I think just we tried to find a lot of new stuff, not the navel gauge or anything, but just we tried to find new stuff, but it was all honest. It was all just like, hey, you think this interesting? I think this interesting. Let's talk about it. And there's not a lot of people that had that curiosity. So I just want to thank you for just doing this. Like, I mean, this was just so much. It was so much fun. It was like work, but it never felt like work. There was stress, but it never felt that stressful. It was the greatest job. So I just can't thank you enough, man. It's just been so much fun.
I appreciate you rewarding the faith that I had in you at every step. And it was so incredibly gratifying and rewarding to watch you do that. And I know you're going to keep doing amazing things. And, this will not be the end. You'll be back on the show, and I'm sure we'll be doing stuff with each other down the road.
We're doing the quarterback draft still?
I don't think so, because we're doing it next week. So I'm sorry. Listen, we all make choices in life, and that comes with consequences.
God dang it. All right. Well, we'll figure that out. We'll figure this out. No, we got to get a couple of those. The Hall of Very Good.
There's some good, do that later this summer.
Maybe
that's the move.
But bits like that, it was just so fun. The Hall of Very Good one was so fun for us because it was like, let's talk about the NFC Central. That's been,
guys. We'll do remember some guys pods at some point over the next couple of years.
That's all I ask.
All right, we do have a show to do today, and what we're going to do is talk about the biggest questions that we still have now that the draft is over. This is, people I think probably conceive of what it's like to cover the NFL as the season ends and then the season is over, and then you kind of start the off season. That's never how I've conceived of it. For me, it's always been, you go from the time training camp starts essentially until the draft is over. Like, that is how football season works, especially now with 17 games. There's only a week and a half between the Super Bowl and the Combine. So now this is when the page really gets turned, and we start looking forward, and we start digging into what I will deem off-season content as we feed the content beasts. But before we start that in earnest, I wanted to just kind of consider some of the dominoes that are still to fall, whether it's team building, contracts that might be handed out, some guys that might be on the move. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just the biggest questions that we still have now that teams have gone all the way through the draft. I will give you the honors here. What is the number one question you have now that the draft is over?
Oh man, but like number one is kind of like, it's not the most important one that's on my mind.
The first one you have on your list.
This is actually kind of random, but I've just really been thinking about this team. What the hell are the Seahawks? Like, what is the pace of this team? What do they look like on both sides of the ball? Good and bad. I don't mean this in a bad way. Like, we've done that. What the hell are you guys doing? I think I see what they're doing, but I just want to see what this looks like. I want to see what this defense looks like. I want to see what the reimagined vision. Are they going to be a sneaky good team? Are they bombing this year? So I think this has been on my mind because someone asked me the other day, like, do you think they're like a sneaky good team? And I'm just like, I kind of like stared, and I'm just like, I don't know what I think of them. Like, I don't know how I think they'll finish. So I don't know, but that's just a big question. It's not like think they need to make a move. It's more just something that's been in the back of my mind now more often than not, on a team that I spent a lot of time last year thinking about and kind of went on the back burner for the last few months. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Seattle fans. It's just, I like the new head coach. I'm interested. I like the new offensive coordinator. They still have Gino. They still have some interesting pieces, but that's a team that I'm maybe just very curious this entire season, seeing what this new regime looks like, because we're in a post-Pete world. And yeah, just overall, that is just what are you? more than anything, it's just, what are you, the Seahawks?
I totally understand that one. And that dovetails a little bit with one of the questions that I had. And are we going to see any veteran traits in the next couple months? And one of the positions I was going back to was the Seahawks receivers. Is there a chance they deal one of those guys? If you look at the Seahawks salary cap situation right now, it's fascinating. Okay. Yeah. So right now they have no cap space for this year. And then they have $3 million in 2025 cap space based on their current contract.
How much
they have handed out?
$3
million.
There was not a 30. That was
$3 million heading into 2025. And so you look at it, and they have DK's cap hit is $29.5 million. Lockett's cap hit is $31 million.
Oh, Lockett's
They
still
have
under contract for that year. I actually did not know
$23
that.
million for Draymond Jones, $29 million for Leonard Williams, $21.5 million for Uchenna Nwosu,
Oh,
$13.5 million for
Nwosu.
Noah
You're right.
Fant. And so something's got to give with this. And there's a
Wow.
chance that
Yeah.
some of these older guys that were signed by the previous regime, that's where it gives. They can move on from Draymond Jones and save a bunch of money. If they move on from Geno, they save a bunch of money. So it's possible that they go with those pieces who are aging out a little bit, maybe aren't quite as valuable to this new coaching staff or new front office. But I look at those receivers and Lockett specifically. Lockett's 32. He's not under contract beyond 2025. They would save a ton of money if they moved on from him. So if I were a team that needed wide receiver help, I'd at least call, in part because of what you're talking about. It just feels like this is a team in transition. And I'm just wondering who's part of the transition and who's not if I'm a vulture circling looking for one of these pieces.
What do you think of him? What do you think of him? Would you do you like him coming out? Did you like him coming out of college? Did you like that? Also, yeah, no, that's very interesting. Like, do especially teams like the Texans who seem to be like involved with every trade talk. Like that's what it just it's like, are they calling for another veteran receiver? I don't think they are, but it's just no, you're right. The especially that they have a couple guys that are different flavors and also
Mhm.
somewhat similarly tiered. DK probably a little better, obviously, but just like in the grand scheme of things, like it's just how these guys are going to go. But that's interesting to me. Is like if both of them, I'm surprised both of them are still there. Like I thought by this time, especially once these guys get in, but yeah, the Seahawks are just an overall interesting team. The vet, who else would be like vet receivers? I like the name Cooper Cup got brought up last week, which came out of nowhere for me, and then I was just like, and
I
then that
think
kind
they're
of
in on this year, though. That would
I
be
got it got
surprising to
snuffed
me.
out. It got snuffed
Yeah.
out. It seemed like that
Let's
was
say
like a
they had
2 day.
drafted Brock Bowers, and
That
maybe
was it, right?
that's the move where you move on from a Cooper Cup because they overlap in terms of their usage.
But
Maybe
I,
that happens.
I would say that the Cooper Cup thing was a good thing to jog my brain about like, oh yeah, these guys can be the carrots. These are it's not just draft picks that are traded. I think in my head, I'm like, how many firsts are the Rams gonna have to give up? You can use Patrick Surtain. You can use Cooper Cup as kind of the carrot and the fodder. So I always just that was a good reminder of that.
I got one more receiver name for you, and I think it's going to break your heart a little bit. But
Oh,
if you
thanks.
look at the chessboard, I do think it would make sense for the right team. Chris Godwin.
It totally would.
Chris
Yeah.
Godwin is it's a final year of his deal.
I
He
like
has a
that.
massive cap hit for the Bucks right now, who have very little financial flexibility. If they traded him post June 1, they would save about $20 million against the cap. And they have
Okay.
some flexibility into next year. But again, he's not under contract moving into next season. This is a team that's drafted multiple receivers in the last couple of years. If they felt like they could piece it together, they just paid Mike Evans. The complicating factor there, Lockett has like a $4 million base salary this year. So any team that traded for Lockett would easily be able to fold him in financially. Godwin's at 18.5 million. So that's really
Okay.
the only all right,
No,
if you don't have a lot of space against the cap, would you be willing to extend him or move some money around in order to fit that? Amari Cooper was another guy traded during the offseason. I think his base salary when he was traded was like 20 million. The
okay.
Browns always are willing to move money around. So that's partially why they were able to fit him in. But Godwin was the other name I was kicking around just because, again, 2025 free agent, and the Bucks would save a lot of money if they decided to move on from him after June 1st.
I'm trying to think he'd really like fit with. One came kind of like because Godwin's oh man, Chiefs, but they already splashed their guys. They went speed, and I'm just so sad because Godwin and Mahomes. Oh my God, talk about it's like they had Juju just getting fed. Godwin's like a better version of that. Oh, that would have been so good. But yeah, they already blew their load on receivers. It seems like I'm trying to.
But the
Wow,
other team, I was thinking Patriots, but they
look like
acquired
they're
a
gonna be.
bunch of guys.
Yeah,
So I don't know what the best fit necessarily would be, but he's one that I
and
just wanted to throw out there.
I like that. And Polk's on the Godwin spectrum. Somewhere
Yes.
on there. It's
Yeah.
like Larry Fitzgerald, Gerald Godwin are kind of like there's the Hall of Fame version, there's the Pro Bowl version. Jalen Polk might be the step down from that. Like that's kind of funny. Like he's on that tier though.
Yeah, there's really
Uh,
no team that like jump. I mean, so here's one. Let's tie this together. One of the positions that I was thinking about for just okay, you have a need. I thought you might address it. You didn't end up doing it. I think the Lions need another receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with no Josh Reynolds.
They dress corner.
They dress corner. No Josh Reynolds, and there's a chance that a Chris Godwin might be a little bit too expensive for them. But that's a team with $26 million in cap space before they sign their free agent class. They probably would need to move some money around and make it happen. They've spent a bunch of money this offseason on extensions. It's possible they wouldn't like that, but that's one team. And just looking at the depth charts very quickly that I would just throw out, because where they find another receiver was also one of my questions that I wanted to talk about.
No, that's a good one. A lot of mine are more like, this is what you guys are. Like, are you guys
Yeah.
cool with this? Like the Ravens. So this would be, it was kind of, these are all kind of quasi questions, but like, you're good with this? We're this is what we're at this year. Oh, but that's the thing with the Ravens. I don't want to assess them until August 6th, and the first week of camp is over, and then they signed this mercenary guy, and they had this other like camp guy. They had some trade, and they did something in June. But like, as of right now, it's like, this. My question is like, you're good with this? You're good with this
Which
roster right now?
position group are you thinking about when you say that?
The fronts on both sides is
Mhm.
the kind of what I stare at. O-line especially, they tried. Roger Rosengarten, I thought it was a good solid pick for them on day two. I think he could maybe step in at right tackle right away, go earn his strength and everything. But then I just thought the defensive front would get dressed a little bit more, maybe just one more body, one more piece there, and they kind of let it be. I know they kind of do the vet market and everything, but I thought maybe
That
they'd
market's
add
pretty
more.
picked over by now, man.
That's kind of what I was looking at. I
As
don't
a
see the
man who
end.
roots for a team that needs edge help, I've been staring at the list of available names for a long time.
And the usual ones are getting older. The Houstons of the world, like those guys are getting older.
Calais
Like
Campbell is still available.
oh my God, the world's biggest edge. One of my highlights watching the Falcons last year was not the offense, but it was watching their defense and watching Calais Campbell play D end at 320 pounds and watching like poor tight ends like Dalton Schultz, like try so hard. Just try their best. And Calais Campbell, who's like barely moving, is just like like moving them back into the backfield 4 yards. He's a nice little unique type. So I don't know if you guys want that, especially.
I mean, he can move inside. He's played on the Ravens.
Yeah,
I
he'll
mean,
pay
it
inside.
would be
Ravens
easy
defense
if
is
they
fine for
wanted
him.
to bring him back. But defensive front, they drafted a Isaac in the third round. And so they brought back Kyle Van Noy. They've got some bodies there, but my team specific, I had a couple team specific questions.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's not necessarily even a hole, but like, how is this going to shake out? My first one was, how does the Ravens offensive line shake out?
Yeah.
Because this is a group that was a strength for them last year. That guy's in and out of the lineup. They had to deal with injuries. Ronnie Stanley was hurt a little bit. They were rotating tackles on both sides when Morgan Moses got banged up. But now there's so many question marks. They brought in Josh Jones as a free agent. He's played a little guard, a little tackle. So is he their right guard with Ben Cleveland there? I don't know. Andrew Voorhees was somebody they drafted in the 7th round last year because he was coming off injury. Everyone had conceded that he was better than a 7th round pick. Okay. Now we're past the injury. Is he your left guard? Don't know. Is Rosengarten going to come in and be the starting right tackle as a 2nd round pick with some warts, to say the least, which is why he's a 2nd round pick? I have no idea. So this team was the number 1 seed of the AFC last year. They were like the favorite to come out of the AFC and like the number 2 in Super Bowl betting odds. So the fact that we're going into this season with so many question marks, they deserve the benefit of the doubt. But I'm with you. I'm so curious how some of these position groups get sorted out, because in their minds, I'm sure they want to be the same sort of force they were last year. And I think that becomes a tall task when you consider some of the question marks that are still there.
Well, that's what it is that if it weren't O-line, if it's like, oh, who's catching passes from Lamar, all those things, it's the kind of really, it's the engine of this team too, because they run the ball so much. They have Derrick Henry, and I know Derrick Henry's used to running behind some terrible offensive lines in Tennessee. So he's going to be like, hey, this feels like home. So you still have that, but I don't know. It's what really helped him out last year was Lamar was able to sit those pockets and be a drop back passer, then get to the creation stuff. But you got to see some of those other gifts that he has and some of the other ability you have, because the line was good. It was so stout last year. Like Simpson and Zeitler were, and Linderbaum's undersized, is a great athlete, but Simpson and Zeitler is a very stout guard pairing, and neither of them are there anymore. That's what helped, kind of kept them afloat as Ronnie Stanley's going through his stuff and all of the tackle positions are going through theirs. Like that was able to, like, the solidifying force. So yeah, the fact that they got away from it's kind of just I just thought they would address it by now, and they kind of just kept it at it. And again, like you said, the Ravens get the benefit of the doubt, but still, it's just a question mark for me.
So the Ravens offensive line was one of the team questions I had.
Yeah.
Lions wide receiver was another one. The other guy that I was going to float for the Lions, if I'm teams right now and I just need a reliable tertiary receiving option, I'm calling the Niners about Juwan Jennings.
Oh, yeah.
They drafted Pearsall in the first round. Jennings is a free agent after this year. He's affordable. That is a call I'm making tomorrow if I need somebody to come in and be my third receiver. And I think for the Lions specifically, think about how his skill set fits into what they
would love him.
He would be perfect.
Yes.
He would be perfect. So that's the guy I kept going back to. If I'm Brad Holmes, I'm calling John Lynch in 10 minutes. And just what do you want for him? So
I love Kendrick Bourne back in the day in that role, and Juwan Jennings is better. Like Juwan Jennings should get paid this offseason. Once I know he's a restricted free agent this last year, but this next offseason, once he's undrafted or unrestricted free agent, oh my God, like that's a great call. He's such a good secondary player. Like I would upgrade your tertiary. I'll upgrade him to secondary. He's above auxiliary. I think this is the rankings now. It's auxiliary, tertiary, secondary, primary.
And with the Lions specifically, I think he fits in really well. So that was one. And I have 3 teams that I'm curious where they seek out cornerback help. Okay. The Raiders, they did not draft corners. Yeah. And it was one of the biggest needs they had coming into the draft.
I just had the Raiders period. So that's good.
And then let's do that in a second. And then the other 2 teams that I have, Steelers. Yep. Where do the Steelers find a corner? Are they a Stephon Gilmore team? If we're thinking about the free agent, the veteran free agents that are still on the market. And then the Bucks. The Bucks did not really spend big at outside corner in the draft, and they traded Carlton Davis. Zion McCollum is in that spot right now. So those are the cornerback teams. But let's expand a little bit on your Raiders question, because I find them very interesting. I've thought more about them in the last 72 hours than I expected to post-draft.
I don't hate it, but also what is it? That's where I'm at. Don't hate it, but where are we at with this? I just keep seeing, Gardner Minshew starting quarterback. So that kind of always brings me back down to earth. But this is a team that, like, they have some interesting pieces. The defense was so improved last year in the second half of the year, but then they didn't really add that kind of like another needle mover there. They went, no, we're going to help out the offense, which I understand, but it wasn't
they signed Christian Wilkins in free agency. If he's not a needle mover
I'm at the draft.
Price tag, that's a fuck up. Okay,
I'm at the draft.
Okay,
I thought they were going to go corner because who's playing there, and then and they went Bowers, which we came around to it even on the draft show. Like Dane's like, hey, he's still a great player, and I'm like, yeah, it is. It's just like I can't mold it in my head. I wrote Michael Mayer is a hell of a player too, and he actually, once he got some extended playing time post McDaniels, like he looked like the guy that me and Dane has our tight end 1 last year in the loaded class. So okay, that's interesting. But then Devontae Adams is still there. Like Devontae Adams is still on this roster, healthy. Like, and they're adding different pieces than pass catchers as opposed to a guy that could throw him the ball, which I know they're in a tough circumstances. Quarterbacks are off the board, all those things, but they're going in with Gardner Minshew as opposed to a Jacoby Brissett or something like that. Different backup tiers. They're just a weird team to me, and I don't mean bad. I'm going to be very interested how it unfolds because I like the players. I think they're going to be really well coached on defense at the very least. So, yeah, I just have a question mark over the whole team. That's where I'm at.
I have something I want to float to you that I floated to, I think it was when I was talking to Field Yates yesterday. And now that I've thought about it, I can't not think about it. The Raiders as a 2025 Dak Prescott team.
Oh, don't tempt me, temptress. Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the roster and you're looking at the timeline with some of the roster, Colton Miller's 30. Devontae is going to be 33 next year. Jacoby Myers is 29. They still have a bunch of young pieces on this team. But I think the only way the timeline really comes together and it really makes sense, because how many times have we asked over the last 2 years, what the fuck are they doing with Devontae Adams on this team? Like, this team is not on that sort of trajectory. No. How does this make sense? For me, the only way this makes sense, the Raiders build and how they've approached this, the urgency with going to get a guy like Christian Wilkins, is if you can drop a ready-made quarterback into this equation and try to compete as soon as 2025. And the guy who could be available theoretically as part of that calculus is Dak Prescott. And they right now, they have $54 million in 2025 cap space. Okay. And Devontae has a $44 million cap hit next year. They're going to have to touch that no matter what and
Yeah.
play with that if they want to keep him on the roster. So financially, this team would be in a position to absorb whatever Dak is going to make in 2025 and 2026. And I don't think you could say that a lot about a lot of other teams that would be motivated to make it happen and that it would make sense for where they are in the process. But I think the
Yeah.
Raiders are that team.
Man, that's not I think in my head, I've been thinking that Mike McDaniel's gonna be like, "Hey, that's my guy. That's my Stafford," and that's maybe my fan fiction of all of it. But with the Raiders, yeah, that's juicy because the Devontae thing, you have an answer for them as well. They can go, well, we can extend them for like a little mini extension, like to make the cap hit more
Mhm.
palpable because you're like, hey, we got Dak, so we're pushing for 2 years. That could just give you a lot of you pay more money to find more answers, but I think that's a good answer. I like that a lot. I know this Dak saga. I'm sad I'm not going to be on the show for this year because the Dak saga it's gonna be something to kind of keep track of throughout the rest
I'm
of this year.
almost glad I don't have to talk about that with you over the next year because
You
you
d-
would be so the combination of like frustrated and
yeah,
annoyed.
annoyed.
Your approach to that and your feelings about it, I feel like would be a detriment to
The
constructive conversation.
the last season, I think it was perfect. The pace of it, it was like the check in. It was like every 4 or 5 weeks. Still want to pay him? We're still good with them. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, okay. Just checking in. Just like it was like good or bad. You're just like yeah, just like the Dak check in every 4 to 5 weeks.
So that brings me to my next question here.
Okay,
What do the quarterback extensions look like, and when
dude.
do they happen? So the 5 names that I would focus on here: Dak.
Okay.
Do they touch that? Do they let him
Th-
play out the season?
This was gonna be one of my questions, so this is perfect. Keep going.
If they let him play out the season, is he just going to be a free agent next year? Okay. Teams like the
Mhm.
Raiders, I think, would be very happy if that were the case. What do the Jags do with Trevor Lawrence? I think they're going to pay him,
I think
but
it's
is
maxed
this
out.
just
Yeah,
a no question? You are now one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. Do we just going to give him the Justin Herbert contract? I think Trevor Lawrence is a very good player. I wonder if that's the tenor of those discussions.
right.
What the hell do the Packers do with Jordan Love? Because the way that Jordan Love played by the end of last season, I think he has a chance to be a top 8 to 10 quarterback for an
Yes,
extended period of time. But we saw him play at that level for like 6 games. So
in
what
tough
do you do with
games.
that?
Mhm.
It does, I have a lot of faith in Jordan Love being good moving forward, but that is still a leap of faith to
It is.
give him that sort of deal on the body of work that we've seen. And then the two others, what do the Lions do with Goff? The fact that this still hasn't gotten resolved
It's
I
interesting.
find interesting because I assumed that they would just have a solution and kind of go from there. And
And
now that
Holmes
we
loves
have
them, and like
all of them,
it's
he's
strange,
been
right? I
such a
thought that would
huge
be
part.
done.
But
Yeah.
I get it because okay, if you're Jared Goff's people and you're trying to figure out the right solution here, what is it? Is
Yeah.
it the Kirk Cousins contract that he just signed, which is kind of a markup on the Daniel Jones deal? Which
Mhm.
and that the Daniel Jones contract is the one that kind of throws a wrench into this because we have middle class quarterback contracts now. What Baker signed, what Geno
Mhm.
signed,
Mhm.
and I think that Goff deserves more than that based on how he played over the last couple of years and based on the relationship he has with that organization and just kind of how it's gone and his
And his
role
age
in
and
resurrecting all of
everything.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
It's
is
yep.
youngish.
Yep.
I think he's played
He's
very
prime.
well
Yep.
over the last couple of years. So, but does that mean he bumps up closer to the top of the market? Do we sit there
Right.
in that Derek Carr, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins range? So figuring out the comparison points and where he falls on that spectrum, I get that it's taken a little while to figure that out if you're both sides in that negotiation.
Mhm.
And then the last one's Tua.
This was one of my biggest questions. This was my big one, so I'm glad we're getting to it anyways. Yes. Yes. What
So
happens?
I, and you could tell me anything. You could tell
Anything.
me that everything that they have said publicly is posturing and they're just trying to play out the string and keep things hunky dory. And, we're not going
Don't
to,
burn a bridge. Don't like
exactly, we're going
yep,
to
don't
express public support for the guy, but
which is
behind
smart.
closed doors, we know what he is, or we believe them at face value. And
Yeah.
everything they've said about wanting to extend him and wanting him to be back is something that they want to do. I mean, this offseason for the Dolphins, I get why it had to happen because
Yeah.
of how much they leveraged
What they
themselves,
did.
some of those moves last year, but this is a strange team.
It is.
because it's hard to pinpoint why they're going to be better than they've been in the past. Kind of similar to the conversation we've had about Dallas. And I don't think either of those teams got demonstrably better this offseason. I think you could argue both of them got worse.
The team one and like that I was most curious to talk about today was the Dolphins overall. And I was going to use Tua's contract, so this is perfect. What you just laid out, I think McDaniel is one of the best, and this is why he got the A+ rating from the NFLPA about like environment to work with coaching. Those guys encourage the hell of you. They're very good at guarding their guys, meaning defending their guys and encouraging their guys and building up just confidence. He's really good at it. He really is. It's commendable. But the thing is, can't read between the lines sometimes, kind of going, all right, is this, like you said, is this real? Do they actually feel this way? It's probably somewhere in the middle, like it always is. But that's what I'm just curious what they go with. Another one of those contracts I feel like, especially statistically, what he's put up and with his health last year, it feels like Tua could go, technically he could go, oh, I've earned that extension.
I want 55 million.
Yeah. But the fact they're going, there's a little delay here is like just, maybe they're waiting for a domino to fall. Maybe they're just going, well, we got to play this out. That it's anything can happen, like you said. But just this whole team, I would say in free agency, they did a commendable job it's the commendable Dolphins. That's the 2024 Dolphins. They're commendable. They did a fine job of trying to find cheapish talent to shore up these spots. The Tier Tart contract is like the perfect example. His stock is low right now. This guy is a good player. Okay, let's get him on the cheap. He shores up our defensive tackle instead of having Christian Wilkins there, paying him $20+ million, ton of money, more than that. But
Kendall Fuller is another good example.
Think
I appreciate how proactive they tried to be at some of these spots.
Pro scouting did a good job there.
Kind of take a crowbar and pry open this window that you feel like you have. I appreciate the effort that went in to that pursuit.
I do too.
I just don't know how it's all going to shake out. Jordan Brooks is another good example. Jordan Brooks is a solid player. You get him on a little bit of a discount. Like, I could see this Dolphins team from a talent perspective being pretty darn good again. They just haven't erased any of the questions I had about them by the end of last season. They've more so just, the art, it's kintsugi, right? Where a piece of pottery breaks and you put it back together with gold seams. That's what the Dolphins feel like right now. They feel like a kintsugi version of the 2023 Dolphins, which is fine, right? That's well done. It takes some artistry to make that happen, but it's the same bowl. It's just put back together.
It is. It's a little bit more broken this time. The biggest questions ending last season were, how does this team deal with injuries? How does this offensive line last the whole season? And what is Tua? And none of those have been answered for me. And none of those have been like solid. There's not a solid answer that I can point at or anything like that. I like a lot of things they did, but they haven't answered a lot of the questions I still have on them.
The other quarterback deals I floated out there for you, Trevor and Jordan Love, just going rate, fine.
Going rate, just because their age and just, of course, I'm optimistic about both of them and bullish on both of them. I think those guys are worth those kind of contracts too, that become more palpable as time goes on, like as the other markets get reset.
How do you feel about where Goff falls?
I liked what you said. He's that upper middle class. I think he deserves. He's between the big contracts and like the car contract to me. Like, is there kind of like a lower upper class contract? Like a kind of maybe that's where I kind of picture him.
That's the Cousins deal, right? I mean, Cousins got $45 million a year. So
that's the number I had in my head was mid-40s. Like, yeah.
And I think that makes sense, right? So if Joe Burrow is now at the top of the market at 55, does Jared Goff slot in at like 45 where Cousins is? But if I'm Goff's people, I'm coming in there and saying, we've been a top 5 offense over the last couple of years. Kirk Cousins is 34, I believe. Jared is not even 30. Jared turns 30 in October. So you're 4 years younger. This guy has been a huge part in resurrecting this franchise. We went to the NFC Championship game last year, and you're telling me that he's worth the same AAV as a guy who just tore his Achilles and is 4 years older than my guy. So I get both sides.
His team didn't want him.
I get.
He came here when you guys were nothing. He took those hits. He took those shots, and then you guys we go 12-5.
What did they win? 3 games in 2021. We're a 3-win team 2 years ago, and now you want this guy to take a discount?
Right.
No, we're not going to do that.
And
So
this is
I
how
get
agents
the
work
tension
too.
there.
We're gonna use QB rating here, not QBR, QB rating. This guy finished ninth in QB rating. It was almost 100 last year. This is how they go, though. This is the arguments that these guys made. He threw for 4,500 yards. Yeah, he was second in yards last year. But again, this is how the agents are going to argue. And if you're Brad Holmes, you better hope you got some EPA. But he did good in EPA too.
Yeah,
Did good in
it's
success
you're
rate too.
by stats, you're going to have a hard time dinging what Jared Goff did
Right.
last year. You're going to
Doesn't
have a
miss time.
really hard time.
He's about to enter his prime. Quarterback prime is 29 to 33, 28 to 33. That's the prime for it. Okay, so he's entering his prime. He is started every game since he's been in Detroit. I think
He started most of the games in his career. I mean,
yeah,
very rarely
he's
has
one
been
of the
hurt. He had
most
that thumb at the end of the season a couple of
Jared,
years ago. That was really
Jared
it.
Goff's one of the toughest, most durable players in the NFL, and he still
Yes.
doesn't get credit for it.
Yes.
It's unbelievable how tough Jared Goff is, and he just has that body that just can take hits. It's like Mick Foley.
It's so true.
It's like
It's so
he
true.
just take hits.
He's a Gumby-like body. I've told the story many times. I remember after the Super Bowl in 2018, I was in the tunnel and I walked back with him toward the locker room because the Super Bowl is weird. What happens is the players kind of go into these areas where there are a bunch of podiums, and that's where the post-game access happens. And then they go back to the locker room. And I happened to be in the tunnel when he was walking back. And, we were talking on the way over, and he was just beat to shit. I mean, that was that Patriots game where they just got absolutely destroyed on that side of the ball. And for him to take that sort of punishment and come out on the other side, I think we truly underrate how tough that dude is. Think back to what it was like at Cal. I mean, he got the shit kicked out of him at Cal last year.
For him. Oh my God. The offensive line there. They would do these waterfall drops where their protection was literally let guys run into you. It wasn't, I know pass protection is more passive as a whole because you're moving backwards, but they just waterfall drop and go like this. And it was basically use your body as a shield. But then guys would just slip by him, but by guards and tackles. And there's Goff throwing deep ball after deep ball, just getting rocked. I love Goff's film. It was like, I compared him at the time. I said he's a lot like the guy we have, meaning Matt Ryan, because I was with the Falcons at the time. I said he's kind of like a Diet Coke version of him. There at the time, they go, don't say Diet Coke, just say he's a 5 version of him. But that's the NFL. They don't like those fun terms. But Robert Mays liked it. That's why he called me to come on this podcast. He liked the term Diet Coke.
That's right.
But I love, but really just that exercise we played out. That's how those negotiations go. This guy hasn't missed time for you. He's won games, and look at the stats. And then you're going to say, don't pay him like that. I mean, that's what you have to do as an agent anyways, but that's what the argument's going to be.
And I understand both sides of it. Again, I think
so.
that Jared Goff has limitations compared to top of the market quarterbacks, but I don't think Jared Goff's limitations are any more pronounced than Kirk Cousins' limitations. I actually think they're pretty similar.
They're very similar. They don't create, they push the ball, they can operate on time. Great. They have good pocket movement. They mitigate some negative plays. Like, yeah, they're the good solid tier. That's what they have kind of established themselves as.
Other contract considerations. What happens at receiver this offseason? So we've started to see the trickle. Okay. AJ Brown gets 3 for 96. So that's $32 million a year. If AJ Brown is worth $32 million a year, then what is Justin Jefferson worth? Because we were wondering, is he going to top the Bosa deal? Or is Jefferson's people, are they going to come in and say, we want to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league? Well, if AJ Brown's making $32 million a year, I think it's pretty comfortable to say that Justin Jefferson is probably going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the league.
I noticed that rookie quarterback you just drafted. How much does he get paid? Wow, that's sure freed up a lot of money for you guys, huh?
Yeah, that guy's making like $4 million against the cap. Well, I'm worth $37 million then.
Yeah.
And I know that the only way your little plan here for getting onto the rookie quarterback timeline, the only way that it works is if I am a Minnesota Viking over the next 4 years.
It's me.
I understand how they got here.
Yeah.
But the Vikings have painted themselves into a couple corners this offseason. They have lessened their negotiating power multiple different times.
I've been thinking about that a lot because now the stories are coming out like who was trying to trade for what and everything. And when the Vikings kind of signaled that we're making a move, like we're moving up. And it's so funny to me. You need a trade partner. You can say, I'm going to trade with everybody. You need somebody to go, yeah, I will trade with you. So it's so funny that to me that the Patriots, they sent him the offer to the Patriots. Apparently, it's kind of come out, and the Patriots were like, "Yeah, we're just gonna take May." Like, I just think that's really funny. It's like you need the other person to cooperate. You could have loved May. They could have, like 5 years from now, they go, May was our guy. That's what we were trying to do. Da 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 da. McCarthy was, I think, still a good consolation prize, but it's like, boom, we go May. We go May. That's our guy. That's our guy. If he works out, they like. It's just really funny to me that it's like we all knew this, so that's why we're not trading out. Like the Patriots, and I'm like, we graded him
we
too.
also need a quarterback.
We also need a
all
quarterback.
this stuff that you want to give us,
So-
yeah, that's what he's worth. So that's why we're not going to trade him.
That's why we need him. Thank you for confirming what we feel about him. Like, I just think it's just funny to me, like this whole operation, because it was like, oh wow, looks like they think they can find a trade partner. Kind of curious to me that the Patriots would be so willing to do that. Like, interesting. Maybe this must be for McCarthy or something at 4 or 5 or something. And then, yeah, it unfolded exactly how I thought that they were left without a partner at the end of the day.
So let's say Jefferson gets $34 million a year, which is hypothetically maybe more. Amon Ross St. Brown has got a $30 million a year contract. Okay.
Yeah, this might be touching 35. So this might be a 4 for, or yeah, this might be a lot.
4 for 140 sort of deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, and now we're talking about like quarterback money for receivers, which that's how the market has gone. So, that's not Justin Jefferson's fault. So, okay, if Justin Jefferson is worth $35 million a year, what is CeeDee Lamb worth?
And now CeeDee Lamb
had a season last year than AJ Brown did.
Mm-hmm.
If CeeDee Lamb is worth $33.5 million a year and Justin Jefferson's worth 35, what is Jamar Chase worth? So how these numbers get slotted, you remember we've talked about this a few different times, just showing our age, but there was that stretch in, I think it was like 2015 or so, where AJ Brown, Julio, and I think it was Des Bryant all got their deals like at the exact same time. And they were within days of each other. And I wonder if there's sort of a domino effect with these wide receiver deals. When one happens, the others start to follow. And I wonder if that happens this summer.
Yeah, the Demaryius Thomas, Des Bryant contracts coming out.
Demaryius Thomas, yeah.
I always forget Demaryius. That's the one I always forget. Rest in peace. But it was the one. It was like contract came out, and 1 minute later, the other contract came out, and they were like identical. Like it's not even funny how close those contracts were. And I remember our cap guy with the Falcons was like pretty ticked off about it, because I think that was the Julio contract summer too. Like I think we just alluded to.
Julio also was a part of those discussions, and
everyone knew he was just a half tier above. So when those contracts came through, he was like, god dang it, because that means it's just got bumped up.
So Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb are both CAA guys. So there are going to be some connection points here as these contracts get negotiated, and I assume that one will inform the other one way or another as these come down. But I'm very curious where all of those end up landing. And then there's also a couple guys that step down from there. What does Ayuk get paid? If Amon-Ra St. Brown is worth $30 million a year, Brandon Ayuk is worth $30 million a year.
Yeah,
and the one that I'm really interested in is Nico Collins.
Okay? Oh, yeah.
So Ayuk, it feels like Nico Collins is on the Ayuk development plan, just 1 year removed.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? Because again,
get that done now before this season starts.
Okay. So Devontae Smith gets 25 a year on his extension. Is Nico Collins worth more or less than Devontae Smith at 25 a year?
Oh, see, if you asked me this a year ago, I would say no, but now I would say yes. Then that's crazy to me.
I think I agree.
I love Devontae Smith. Nico looks good, guys. I don't think I'm shocking anyone saying this. Nico looks like a top 10 guy now, so I would try and give him Devontae Smith pay so he plays like AJ Brown. Like, he's probably
that's a discount immediately.
Exactly. That's what you're hoping.
$25 million, and he's willing to take that. Well, here is the Devontae Smith contract.
Yep. And you'd probably be happy to get it.
You sign it. Here's $25 million a year. There is a chance that can look like a discount as soon as this season, based on where but guess what? His agents know that too. So when they're having,
we're just playing this out right now. These guys think about this 24/7. We spent, I spent 40 minutes thinking on this. Okay, type in some numbers. All right, yeah, here we go. This is what the situation was. They think about this a little bit.
Yeah. So the quarterback market, the quarterback extensions, and then the wide receiver contract and how they unfold. I cannot wait to see what that timeline looks like and what the details are. Do you have any others?
Man, we kind of through our conversation kind of touched on all the other kind of stuff I have. Mine were more team oriented, like kind of just going, all right, what are you guys going to do here? How do I feel about this here? So we kind of touched on most. Like Cowboys was one as well. Just kind of going, all right, again, we're doing this. I think I still haven't grasped really the Mike Zimmer change, what that's going to mean for even just personality wise. I've really thought about the change from Micah Parsons under Dan Quinn, who had a great relationship, to Mike Zimmer. You can't get two different personalities than
I
Dan
hadn't even
Quinn.
thought about that.
It's really sunk on me the last few days. I know, just these little things are starting to crop into my mind. It's like, how is that going to go? Because Dan Quinn is a great motivator, and he channeled Parsons is a weird energy, and he channeled it better probably than anyone has ever done at the NFL level. I just mean period, but he did it at the NFL level. And then you get to Zimmer, who's a very much my way, highway. There is no highway. It's my way. Or
Old
yeah,
school.
old,
Old school.
the
definition
oldest of
school.
old school. Yeah. Older than my dad, old school. Like this is an old time coach. So I'm just curious. It's just such a different philosophy. Dan Quinn's more, we're going to win with speed. Yes, we can make mistakes. Mike Zimmer is no, everybody go to the freaking gap and you better be right. So it's just that's kind of more one that it happened months ago when Zimmer got hired, but I haven't really thought on that, like what that means for their personnel, what that means for just their demeanor. It could be interesting to add some more discipline to that defense, because that's what cost them so many games, was that they're so all over the place. But how's that unfold? The Cowboys as a whole are interesting, but yeah, now the defense is getting a little bit more of my attention than maybe a month ago.
I think that's all worthwhile questions. I mean, I think it was during the draft show, Dane said Mike Zimmer's name, and it was one of those like, oh shit, I forgot that even happened sort of moments.
It was the Nealon pick. And we're like, Mike Zimmer's the DN. Yeah, that's right.
It's like, oh man, I mean, it's because that happens. There's that flurry of moves and changes staff wise, and then you kind of come up for air and metaphors when the dust settles and you figure out who's where and what things are going to look like. There's always that moment, I think, post draft, and that was definitely one of them. Yeah. Any other team questions that you had, team centric ones?
Okay, good one to send off on. Maybe, how good are the Colts going to be? How good is Anthony Richardson going to be? Because I'm looking at that team, and you don't have to twist my arm. This is the Athletic Football Show about the
That's
Colts.
why I'm not going to engage with this.
Because as opposed to a team of Bs, they're like, oh, I got at least B pluses right now. I'm going to bump up their grade a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. The Colts right now they're grabbing my interest. I don't know if I have a question, but more of a I just want to say the Colts are very interesting for me, especially in that division, especially where that kind of upper middle tier of the AFC is right now. A lot of teams in flux, and they seem the opposite to me. They seem a team ascending, and with a really cool head coach and I think a really cool quarterback. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a question I have here. But yeah, the Colts are interesting to me right now on May 1st, 2024.
You said some very nice stuff to me at the beginning of the show about, my personal growth and what you've seen from there. I think that having a growth mindset is important, and it's a way that you should approach your life and everything that comes to you. And 4 years ago, when we started this show, I would have allowed myself to get really excited about the Colts in a way that was not justified, but I'm trying to get better, and I'm not going to do that.
No,
I'm going to wait to see it. Maybe 2026 when Latu's in year 2, we see what Adonai Mitchell is. We'll see how some of those position groups come together. They can add that cornerback help that they still haven't added yet. So maybe next offseason, after they are a wild card team this year, or they're a 9-win team, that's when I'll allow myself to get excited about the Colts, but not before that.
Full steam ahead. Choo-choo. Choo-choo. I know that's actually what we should do, a greatest hits of Mea Culpa. I swear Rashad Bateman, guys. I swear Rashad Bateman's going to be decent.
Well, last year's Falcons offense. Colts offense 2 years ago with Matt Ryan.
Okay, that one, yeah, that was a little bit. I ignored a lot of warning bells there. That one, I definitely, yeah.
Those
Chargers,
Chargers
we got excited about, and then
that's just that's
I build
for me.
I build early, so I left you.
Yeah.
I left you.
No, I'm not going to put that stink on you. That's a me problem more than anything else. I think the Falcons offense and the Colts a couple years ago, those are our two low points in the last 4 years.
Falcons offense is a rough one. I swear though that Josh Dobbs, that game when he came in for the Vikings after the Falcons knocked out Hall in the first drive, it changed talk about sliding doors moment. Hall doesn't get knocked out. I think it's Jaron or Jalen from BYU.
Jaron Hall. Yeah.
Jared gets knocked out in the first or second drive. I bet you the Falcons were like, shoot. No, we wanted that guy playing. And then it just Dobbs broke like 2 tackles on scrambles. Like they had him. This is another reason why I like Ryan Nielsen, the defense coordinator. Some sweet blitzes in that game. No one could tackle Dobbs. And he does what he does. He goes on the Pasternaut thing. The Falcons fall apart. Ritter gets benched. Arthur Smith starts arguing with fantasy guys and press conferences. And it's all done. It's all done. But it's just now, if that doesn't happen, and then they kind of went on the trajectory, kind of maybe not as high as we thought, but maybe make the playoffs. They're that bad NFC South team. Still Arthur Smith. Maybe they bring in Kirk Cousins, and they're like, yeah, this is the guy that we're going to bring in the whole time because we have a plan for this. Oh wait, we don't even care about Penix because guess what? We already have Kirk Cousins on the roster. So yeah, that's a sliding door moment right there. Joshua Dobbs running for those scrambles.
I mean, let's say they lose that game, and maybe the heat of Vikings cools. They lose that next game against the Saints. They're sitting at 4-6 and they shut it down. And then we don't have to worry about a trade up. So there's sliding doors moments for the Falcons there, but they're also sliding doors moments for the Vikings who had to scramble around for quarterback answers this offseason.
Right. Oh,
those 2 Josh Dobbs scrambles have reshaped the way that the offseason went for 2 NFL teams, which I absolutely love.
All right, me and about 1 million people in Atlanta were the only ones watching that game. All right.
I'm gonna ruin the nice dismount that we just had because I've got a couple more that I want to bring up.
Okay.
Where do the available free agents land? Okay. Stephon Gilmore is a free agent. Steven Nelson is a free agent. Adoree Jackson is still a free agent. Left tackles. Donovan Smith as a stopgap option for a team that doesn't have a day 1 starter. What happens with David Bakhtiari? Does he play in 2024?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
His name his name has been in my brain for so long now. Oh,
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah. Especially what the Jets did. Especially what the Jets did in the first round. It wasn't like they were like, oh, we're bringing Bach over. Who cares? Yeah.
And then the other guy is Charles Leno. Okay, Charles Leno, I understand moving on from him. He's 32. He played 13 games last year. The first time he's missed a game since he became a starter in 2015 was last year. And he's 32 years old. So if you just need functional left tackle play early in the season, that's a name I would also take into account.
That's a good one.
And then there are a couple other guys. Odell Beckham is still a free agent. That's one where like, do we want to talk about what happened with Odell Beckham at the end of last season? The fact that he's like wasn't really playing for a playoff team.
It wasn't like, they like had nothing targeted for him. Zay Flowers got their designs. It was like,
that's one where that's a big name. I'm not as curious.
Even when they signed him last year, I was like, hey, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiver season in like years, guys. Like, are we really think this guy's the number 1? He's like a 3.
Like that's a decent amount of money. So, and then Tyler Boyd is still a free agent, and I think Tyler Boyd just
I actually like that
functional receiver play somewhere along the way. And then the 3 other names I'd bring up: Connor Williams is still a free agent. He's coming off the injury, but you can do a lot worse at center if you need a center than Connor Williams.
B-tier lineman. That's way better than usually finding at this point in time.
And then Justin Simmons and Quandre Diggs. 2 safeties that if you need safety help, Justin Simmons is still out there.
Yeah, that's weird. Those guys are you'll see those guys go to some contender in August. That's what it feels like. But I'm shocked because Diggs even 2 years ago was like one of the best safeties in the game in my estimate. Most of these guys. And then last year maybe kind of took a half tier drop, but still a good player. Like Diggs was shoring up so much of what was happening with everybody else messing up. So that surprised me.
3 veterans I would call about after the draft: James Bradbury, Jonathan Allen, and my last one here. Again, if we're going to play some greatest hits before we get out of here, I would call about Baron Browning.
Oh yeah.
Free agent after this year. Broncos drafted Jonah Ellis. They've got a couple more of those bendy edge guys. They still have Nick Bonito on the roster. Again, team very much in transition. I'd at least call. If I just needed pass rush juice somewhere, I don't know if he's in their future plans. So those are 3 names. I didn't do a deep dive on who potential veteran trades might be, but those 3 guys, as I did kind of a quick peruse, those are the ones that came to mind for me.
John Allen, man. So he's got a $14 million base. He's got 2 years under his deal. He's 29 this year. He's 30 next year. Holy crap. I'm a contender.
I'd call.
You have to.
Again,
especially they drafted Newton. So it's not like they're So even if they want to go, well, we don't have some, well, they drafted a pretty talented player in the second round. Deron Payne's a stud. So you already have your star that you paid. Yeah, that John Allen's a very interesting one.
The Raiders, I think I would call about James Bradbury. Knows Patrick Graham, familiarity there, available at the right price potentially. So those, now that we've seen the way the teams approach the draft, I think there are a couple veterans that maybe for the right price tag you can pry loose.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, I feel like James Bradbury's name is always going to be. It's one of those guys. James Bradbury's available. It's like he's just, for some reason, he's that corner.
I mean, I think he's going to be, he got paid, and obviously he had that really good season a couple years ago for Philly when their pass rush was getting home in 2.2 seconds every single play. But I think he's going to be a stand-in for, again, functional cornerback play. Yes. Like that's what he is going to be.
He's the Connor Williams of corners.
Yes. And that's why he's part of these discussions. There's a reason that the guys in those tiers are available at this point in the calendar.
They still have value.
All right, buddy. That's all we got.
That's all we got.
I don't think no reason to rehash. I said what I wanted to say at the top, and I meant every single word of it. And I appreciate so much what you've given me and what you've given the show over the last 4 years. And we wouldn't have done anything that we've done without you. So
everything, man, can't tell you enough. It's not the last time, but it honestly, this was so much fun. Like you said, watching this whole grow. And I just also to thank everybody that's helped out with this. Marissa's on the pod right now. Kent, Michael Beller, Alex, all these guys, Michael Martinez, everybody behind the scenes. It's just been the guys that initially hired me as well. I don't know if they're still listening to this pod, but Matt Wasserman, all these guys. So I just can't thank them enough as well. But Robert, it's just love you, bud. This has just been an incredibly fun few years. It's just such a fun chapter in my life. And I'm thankful for every show that we've done, all these dozens of live pods and Thursday night pods and Sunday night pods, and then experiments and lessons, everything, rankings, every single one's been a blast. And I just can't thank you enough, man. I really can't.
I appreciate everything you poured into it because it was everything I could have asked at any point. So, and that means so much. It was so comforting to know that every time I turned on the microphone, I knew you were going to have put in the work. Every single time I knew I could go to any place I wanted to because of what you were going to pour into it. And that is so comforting and energizing for someone in my position. And you made my job easy. So thank you for all of that. And thank you for everything. It's been really, really fun. And we will do this again, if in a slightly different capacity. But for now, we're going to close that chapter. And it was a fun one. So we appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you listening. We will be back next week. Yeah, the Athletic Football Show rolls on. But for everything, for all the support, since Nate got here and for what the show has been over the last 3.5 to 4 years, we really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next Tuesday.